Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Start Small, Think Big podcast brought to you by Digital Meld. My name is Brad Groux, founder and CEO of Digital Meld.
And I'm Sara Nay. I'm the CEO of Duct Marketing.
Yeah, so Sara and I reached out a couple of weeks ago to talk about how we can share some marketing insights to folks, even small businesses, solopreneurs, businesses of all shapes and sizes, I think, and how you can utilize AI to kind of, again, what I like to say is punch above your weight class. And marketing, I think, is ripe for the use of AI. We've all see that the AI slop, as I like to call it, and others call it, on LinkedIn and stuff. But you can use AI to help streamline your marketing operations, maybe not fully automate your marketing operations, because I think Sara will probably agree that you need that human touch, I think, to really set the things home. But Sara, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I think you made a couple of key points there. There's a lot of people diving into AI and creating noise and confusion because they're not taking the step back to set it up properly and to think about it strategically. And so I'm sure we'll get into that more, but there's a right way to bring in AI to a business and there's a confusing way to bring it into a business. So we can dive into that more, hopefully in this show.
Yeah, awesome. So why don't you just take a couple minutes to tell folks about yourself, tell folks about Duct marketing and what your goals are and how some basic areas where you're utilizing AI now and how you can see that brings value to customers.
Of course. So we've been in business for about 30 years. I've been with the company for 15, started as an intern December 2010, worked my way up through the company, played a number of different roles, and last December stepped into the CEO seat. So over those years, we've always been a fractional CMO agency. And so what does that mean? We come into a business, we create a marketing strategy, and then we lead their marketing execution in the form of a long-term retainer. So we've been doing that our whole entire time in business, but we also, for the last 16 or so years, have been certifying other fractional CMOs, agencies, consultants in our approach to marketing. And so, as I mentioned, we've always created strategy and then we've shifted into execution. We typically handled execution for our clients. We've recently made a fairly drastic shift to the extent of us even calling it an anti-agency model, where we're still coming in and we're creating marketing strategy based on the business strategy for our clients. But then instead of us just outsourcing and handling all of the execution, we're enabling internal marketing teams to be able to run the execution by staying on and leading the strategy, bringing up those team members, and then layering AI tools and systems below them so they can be able to make more of an impact. And so essentially we're helping doers when it comes to marketing move from doers to more orchestrators with AI systems below them.
Excellent. We kind of dive into the news a little bit, so I'd like to touch base on a couple of news stories. We like to do things relevant for folks and relevant to your expertise from that perspective. And one thing I'd like to touch base on is the rise of search engine optimization. I know that's not something you necessarily specialize in specifically, but how the AI tools are also being utilized from a marketing perspective. So now whenever people search for ChatGPT or search Gemini or search these other sorts of things, they're getting resources from all over the web because they're generative AI models that are scraping the web. Are you seeing a rise of the need from that from your customers where they're looking like, how can we be these sources of truth within these models?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one area of marketing that's being drastically shaken up. Some people are going as far as saying like SEO is dead. And I think that's a little bit of an attention giver. SEO isn't dead, but what we do from an SEO perspective is completely changing. A lot of what's helping with being found in like LLMs and different models right now is by having brand credibility, by having a lot of trust online, by having a lot of content, making sure your website is being able to be crawled and read by AI and all of that stuff is important. And so the goal is shifting from, being shown up on certain keywords in Google Search to being shown up in things like ChatGPT and the previews that show up within search. And so that's one area that I think in a year from now, or even like 6 months from now, SEO as we know it is not dead, but the way people are approaching it is going to completely evolve and change. And so that's just one area of marketing that's being impacted. And I think it's a starting point, but I think from there, paid ads is another area that's going to continue to be impacted as well. How we manage the ads is one area that's being impacted right now, but also, in the near future, when people are using agents to do their shopping online and to make purchase decisions, it's going to evolve even further from where it is today.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never really thought about it, but ads are currently targeted at people. So I guess people are learn how to game the agents, right? And they're going to target ads towards the actual agents going out and searching and those sorts of keywords. That's a unique perspective I hadn't really thought of.
Well, and even like websites, as we know it, I'm part of a mastermind for AI, and it's very people are very high level in that mastermind in terms of what they're doing. And we were having a discussion the other day, and they were talking about how websites right now are built for humans, but in the future we might be building websites that are just for AI agents. And so instead of telling the full story and building on emotion and building trust and all the stuff that's really important in marketing today, it might be about just getting information to an agent that's trying to make a purchase decision for their human. So the way, and again, I don't know where things are going exactly because it's all changing so fast, but it's interesting to think about marketing as we know it today might be completely different from what we're doing from a tactic standpoint and what humans are involved in the next 6 months, year on.
No, it's a great point. I think it's just the Wild West, like every other aspect of the world. Like we don't really know where it's going. We're all kind of flying by the seat of our pants, but it is cool to kind of like try to predict those trends and where that's going to go and kind of look forward and think. I always tell people reflect back to with the AI age, we're about like what the AOL was to the internet age, right? Like folks were just now getting a taste. It's more approachable. And so just think of how far the internet's come in that 25, 30, 28 years or so since AOL, the rage in the mid 90s, and where AI could be in the next 20 or 25 years. And that's a unique perspective I haven't really thought of. And, for the folks that don't know listening, that basically whenever you go to Google now or Bing, one of the large search engines, and you type in a search, it gives you your normal search results. But at the top, it also gives you the AI summary. Because again, they're trying to get you to buy into Google Gemini or Microsoft Copilot, their AI platform as well, because they know that that's coming, because they know most people are, 500 million people use ChatGPT every month. So they're trying to get that slice of the pie. And so just know that there is the option of going and just scrolling right past us and going to the normal ranked pages from the search engine optimization. But most people, AdWords have proven that most people click the first 2 or 3 links on a page. And so just know that people are going to learn how to game those AI rankings, and then the algorithms are always going to catch up. But just trust but verify, just like you should with pretty much every other link you click on the internet.
And also pay attention to your metrics because you're probably going to decrease in traffic of people actually going to your website as well. So maybe you ranked really well for a specific keyword, but now AI summary is above your website and people can get what they need from that AI summary. They're not going to click to your website in a lot of cases. I do that myself. Anytime I look for something on search now, if I can get what I need in the AI summary and I'm just doing some like quick research, like I won't actually click within the websites below it. And I also think like your metrics are going to drastically change in terms of like actual traffic to your website because people are getting the information that they need for more of like informational type of surface searches without actually having to go to your website now.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. I mean, we saw that with news stories, right? When Google News became all the rage, that all these other news websites kind of like lost traffic because Google would just summarize news stories into a couple of paragraphs or a paragraph, 5 to 6 sentences, and made it way more palatable. You could read up for more news. And so I think again, that's another great point. With that said, I think we can talk about the good parts of AI in marketing. Was like the hyper-personalization at scale. So now you can use these tools with automation, some on the back end to personalize, because you're collecting metadata obviously on your visitors and your traffic and where your visitors are coming from either from HubSpot or something like a CRM marketing campaign. So you can actually personalize things specific to a very niche demographic based upon a couple of key data points. Can you just talk a little bit how you see a rise in that?
Yeah, I mean, personalization has been a challenge in the small business space because it was hard to figure out the technology wasn't really here or it was expensive. And so I think with the evolution of AI, it's making it more accessible to the small business space, which I think is a really exciting opportunity. I mean, the thing with AI, and I think where we have an opportunity moving forward is you can get really focused on getting the right message to the right person at the right time based on data that you didn't have access to before. And so you can get really targeted with the story you're telling based on the specific person, which is, I think, really exciting opportunity in the small business space.
Yeah, that's great. Kind of building on that, the AI is going to allow you to automate the entire campaign lifecycle, right? So a lot of times you had to have certain checkpoints or do things and have lots of hands-on manual tasks for the certain lifecycle aspect of it. And I already see this. We use HubSpot internally as our CRM, and just some automation things we can do from that sales funnel perspective. Can you just, again, kind of build on how that helps the smaller organizations to kind of streamline their operations and compete with the bigger guys?
Yeah, I mean, you just didn't have access to that stuff before. I mean, it was expensive to get it personalized and it was complicated. And so now like CRMs like HubSpot are building that in. And so you might already have solutions in place that allows you to get incredibly personalized in the journey. Because a lot of what marketing is all about, it's guiding the customer journey. And so we have our own version of the customer journey. We call it the marketing hourglass. And so it's how can people get to know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer your business. And so ultimately, you should be always working towards moving people through that customer journey. But before, being able to personalize things, like everyone was going on the same journey no matter what, because there wasn't really a way to get specific to them. And so now that more tools are allowing us to personalize that are coming out, like HubSpot, like instead of everyone going through the same steps in a campaign, you're able to show them the information that's the most relevant to them to guide them through that. So it feels like you're creating a marketing campaign for them specifically versus speaking to a general crowd.
Like you said, the personalizations is the key to success most of the time. You make people feel valued, you make people feel seen, and so much we just get inundated with stuff so much. I think we get those emails that say "Hello, Brad," and then they actually mess up the formatting,
Yeah.
and it's like "Hello, insert name here."
Yeah.
And it's to have that more catered solution that feels more authentic, even if a lot of it is AI generated. You can't just pull that out of a hat. You have to you do your due diligence, set your foundation for that successful campaign, for that successful personalization. But it is possible. There's a lot of sweat equity that still is required to get there, but it is possible.
Yeah. The strategy.
Thanks for commenting on the stories. For those that don't know, we'll share the links to this in the resources. We release our newsletter. This episode will be out this Friday, and then newsletter will be out the following Monday on LinkedIn. Start Small, Think Big newsletter. Or you just hit linktree.com/digitalmeld, and you have links to all those things. And all the resources Sarah and I will discuss today will be available there. I think the one for our episode last week had 20 resources, so lots of cool information there. So do head to our LinkedIn page and kind of subscribe to that newsletter, and you'll get access to that. This was 5 news stories. I kind of just clumped into a couple of extra questions. So I think we'll get on to the actual conversation here. Strategy before tactics and tech. So can you touch base on just the foundational principles of strategy before tactics and how that's kind of evolved?
Yeah, so we've been in the marketing space for 30 years. We've always said strategy before tactics over those 30 years because one of the biggest challenges I see in the small business space is people just dive in to different marketing tactics without taking a step back and actually identifying things like target market on a deep emotional level and messaging that resonates with them and what the customer journey looks like, and then what channels can I be on, and then what content should we be producing. Like, you have to put all of that heavy lifting in first. And so for over the last 30 years, we've always helped people take a step back and create that overall marketing strategy to then get to the tactics. Because when people rush with the tactics, they waste money. Marketing's complicated. It gets really confusing. Like, there's so many issues in that. And so over the last year or so, we've shifted to say strategy before technology, because now what I see happening is small businesses are bringing in AI tools and solutions without thinking about the actual business and marketing strategy first. Because for me, it starts with what's the business strategy? What's the marketing strategy? What's the team strategy? And then once you think through those things, you're able to then say, okay, now we know, what our priorities are, what we're going to be focusing on, who all is on our team. Then you can think about, okay, what AI solutions can we bring in to elevate our current team so they can make more of an impact and also work towards the goals that we're working towards. So small businesses are bringing in solutions like a ChatGPT, but they then don't take the time to train ChatGPT effectively on the front end or train their team on best practices, use cases, SOPs. And so all of a sudden now they're all getting different output consistencies all across the board. It's not aligned with the brand, messaging, tone of voice, guidelines, all of that stuff. And so it's really important to take a step back and create an overall strategy for what you're actually trying to accomplish, and then look at the tools versus bringing the tools in and then trying to figure out how you're going to use them.
No, those are all great aspects. And again, I don't know the marketing space at all. I'm a technologist at heart, but I am the owner of a small business, and we basically did that thing. We know the tools really, really well. We're like, yeah, we'll just use these tools from a marketing perspective. And we put the cart before the horse several times over and have made a lot of mistakes since the company's been up and running. And so I know we're not alone in that. But can you just touch base on some of the issues you see or some of the ramifications of not doing that due diligence? Because what we say is whenever we go to try to solve a problem for a customer, is like, AI or automation, people get caught in the nuances or whatever that is, but like we start with what problem are you trying to solve? And I think with marketing, is that something similar? Like what message are you trying to portray or what product are you trying to sell? Can you just touch base on what those foundations are, that main question and focus you put at the top of the whiteboard before you start the steps? And then like what are the ramifications of kind of skipping those steps? And have you seen that?
Of
And,
course.
any examples of that?
Yeah, of course. So I got to take a step back even further because it's first, what's the business strategy? And so when we're thinking about a business strategy, it's, what is the business trying to accomplish? What is the mission, the vision, the values? What's the current revenue of the business? Where do they want to be 1 year, 3 year from now? Where do they want their revenue and profit to be? Like you have to understand all of that stuff in order then to create a marketing strategy. Because if I don't know where the business is from a revenue standpoint and where they're trying to grow to, it's really hard to create a marketing strategy because I don't know what they're working towards. And so we take a step back and we start there and we help our clients work through that if they haven't already. And then you think about marketing strategy. And so when we're thinking about marketing strategy, we break it into three parts. We think about the brand strategy, which is ideal clients and messaging, how you want to be seen to the world, like that type of work, which is really important. Once you nail that, you can think about the growth strategy. So how do you actually want to grow? And then you can think about the customer strategy. So how do you want to retain and continue to sell to customers and get repeat customers ultimately and referral sources? And so that's how we break down marketing strategy. And so you need to answer all of that stuff to then be able to say, okay, here's our, 4 to 6 biggest growth priorities for the next quarter when it comes to marketing. Might be, launching a paid campaign or rebuilding your website with updated messaging or whatever it might be. And then you can say who's on our team that can do all of these things and where are gaps, and then how can we bring in AI solutions below them to actually help execute. So with before you bring in AI tools or any tactic execution, it's always what's the business trying to accomplish? How is marketing going to get us there? Who is on our team? And then working towards those specific goals from there.
No, that's terrific insights, and hopefully some of our listeners understand or see the parallels in how we handle the operation side of things, because it's the same sort of thing. What problem are you trying to solve? What's the process for solving that problem? Let's set that standard, that SOP, and then also let's get all the key stakeholders involved so we're not making these decisions in a vacuum. We're coming together and all rowing the boat in the same direction. So makes me feel better that operations and marketing kind of go hand in hand with that same sort of strategy. But I think a business process is a business process in the end of the day, right? And you can't just put the cart before the horse. You have to do your due diligence first. And so not rush in too quickly.
Yeah. And I think, like we always say, you should have a business strategy, you should have an operations strategy, you should have a marketing strategy, you should probably have a finance strategy, you should all, have strategies for different areas of your business. And so I don't know why marketing is often an area where people just dive into without taking that step back. But, without creating the overall strategy, you essentially are playing the guessing game with your marketing. Because all good marketing strategies should end with, okay, here's exactly what we're going to do over the next quarter. Here's where we're working towards, and here's the metrics that we're going to track. And then when you actually go into execution for your marketing strategy, you should be paying attention to those metrics to determine if you should keep doing the things or if it's not going to work for you and you need to shift. And so successful marketing for a business starts with strategy, but then is driven by metrics to help determine how you should shift and evolve moving forward.
Yeah, so it's the iterative approach, right? You're constantly pivoting and changing direction as needed. That's a great idea. And so I guess that kind of brings us on to the next topic, is breaking that agency model. So the systemic breakdown of traditional marketing agencies and how building it in-house instead of doing it for me is the new way thanks to these tools. Can you just touch base on some ways that you're helping to revolutionize that process for your customers?
Yeah, so we've been in the agency space for quite some time. We've trained hundreds, if not thousands, of agencies at this point on how to work with small business clients. And through all of that, I've felt for a while now that the agency model has a lot of challenges. And so on the agency side of things, it's difficult to maintain profitability as you scale. It's difficult to meet client demands and keep up with all things changing. It's difficult to maintain really great team members. Like there's challenges in the agency space that have existed for a long time. On the small business side, I think there's a lot of challenges when you just to outsource marketing. I've heard a lot of bad stories over the years from small businesses who have tried to outsource marketing and they didn't have enough understanding themselves to outsource it effectively. Also, they weren't building an internal asset. And so if you're a small business and you're looking to sell one day, having an internal marketing system that's producing predictable results is going to increase the value in the sale. And so we're really big believers in small businesses having a marketing system internally. And so this has been going on for a while now, but then with the evolution of AI, small businesses started to bring in marketing execution, but a lot of challenges were being evolved in that because they lacked the strategy, they lacked the leadership, they lacked the understanding of how to set up and train AI effectively to actually be able to execute from a marketing perspective. And so that's where the anti-agency model comes into play. I would say AI just sped the model breaking, like it's been breaking for a while, but AI really put an emphasis on it. But now I think if agencies are still offering just marketing execution for their clients, it's going to be a race to the bottom over time in terms of pricing because small businesses will be able to bring a lot of the execution in-house. So where I think the opportunity is for both small businesses and agencies is for agencies to shift and create the marketing strategy to offer leadership to elevate internal teams, but then bring in AI to businesses effectively and then train AI, train humans on how to use AI, put up systems and processes in place. And so everyone's able to get consistent results moving forward. So that allows the small business to take marketing in-house and it allows the agency to be the strategic advisor.
No, those are all great points. And again, I hope folks are getting the similar tone. That's you should feel enabled to do this. You should have the confidence to do this because businesses are doing this all over the world. I tell people all the time, you can do this. AI is approachable. Once you see how understand the basic concepts of it, you can really knock it out of the park. And one thing we like to also say and hope for whenever we're working with customers is AI is a force multiplier, not a job replacer. You know, we say human plus human plus AI and the differentiator. And hopefully a good leader, again, I say it all the time, the hardest thing to do is hire good people. Teaching people is easy. Teaching people are having actual good employees, the hard part. Can you just talk about how you've seen some of your customers and clients upskill within their organization and teach people that wouldn't normally even have thought about marketing, but use these tools to help with marketing, and then also just to upskill across the board and just understand that they're streamlining their operations and how they've once basically maybe they use the entry point of marketing and then they see how we could use this elsewhere too.
Yeah. I think like to your first point, like I think the best thing if you're overwhelmed or not sure with AI, like the best thing you can do is adopt one platform and get a quick win. Because once you get that quick win, you'll come back more and more. And so I just want to touch on that. But to your question, in terms of upskilling, one of the best exercises that I think you could go through as a business owner and with your team is basically list all of the skills that you're doing or using on a regular basis in your job, and then identify what are the ones that are increasing in value. What are the ones because of AI? What are the skills that are staying stable because of AI? And what are the ones that are decreasing in value? And then focus on spending most of your time on the skills that are increasing your value. And then look at how can you bring in AI to help with those things that are more tedious, time consuming, that are decreasing in value ultimately. And so I think it's a really good exercise to go through yourself as a business owner because it will help you focus on where you should spend the majority of your time and where you should bring in AI systems below you. But I also think it's a really great exercise to go through with your team as well, because then you can help them identify where are their skills increasing in value. And then it will help you understand how to provide them with more training moving forward on those skills to up level and to future proof their career ultimately. And so an example when it comes to marketing role in the past, someone did a lot of content creation, let's say. So they created social content and blog content and email content. And before AI, they would have the skill set of like sitting down and researching and writing the outline and writing the content from scratch and then editing it and then going and publishing it and optimizing it from an SEO standpoint, hopefully. And so that person might be still tasked with like the same amount of content, but I would argue if they bring in AI effectively, they can move from doing to orchestrating or overseeing the process using AI. And so now they're managing AI platforms instead of doing all of the doing. And so that skill set is something that they'll need to develop, even though they're just managing AI and not humans. If they've never managed before, it's a different skill set because they still need to see the strategic big picture. They still need to know how to communicate because you're communicating with AI to give it information on the front end and the back end. And so you might identify that person needs to develop better communication and leadership skills now that they're in an orchestrator role and not just a doer role. And so going through that exercise would then tell you to put more focus on those specific skill sets, basically humans interacting with humans more.
No, those are all great points. And again, people don't really think about it, but yeah, you're going to have to be a manager moving forward. You're going to manage teams of agents to do your job. And again, I love that you brought up to get that quick win. We say that all the time. And keep it simple, stupid. Like, hey, start with the lowest hanging fruit, knock it out of the park, get that momentum, get that groundswell. Start whatever tool. Just once you can start with the tool, stick with that tool at least for a little bit to get comfortable with how to utilize these tool sets. And then you can, once you get more comfortable, and you'll know how to better prompt, and you'll know how to better judge what these platforms are giving you, the output these platforms are giving you. And I think the big thing too is once you put things out there, you'll understand whether it's actually working or not, or if it's just noise. Like there is a lot of AI slop out there. Sometimes you're going to have those mistakes, but as long as you're learning from them, I think you'll be okay. It's really great. I think we hope that, again, that's one reason we started this podcast, and the ways to have people, give people the faith and the ability to upskill themselves, not necessarily wait for their job or their manager to get there. But obviously we hope internally those conversations happen too. And so it's good to know that that people are having the faith to take that first step. And so can you just touch base really quickly on how you helping business internalize that execution? So hone in on that first low-hanging fruit, that first quick win.
Of course. So it all comes back to, it always all comes back to strategy, because you mentioned slop a couple times. Like where people are struggling is they maybe are like, oh, I'm going to write content with ChatGPT, but they don't ever give ChatGPT like proper training on the front end. And so then ChatGPT creates generic content that anyone could create. And that's a lot of what you see on LinkedIn and different platforms right now, unfortunately. And so we help them take a step back and we go through kind of 5 steps. But the first step is creating the business and marketing strategy. Then it comes down to analyzing your team. Then it comes down to bringing in AI systems and training them, and then training your team on how to use the AI systems, and then writing SOPs basically so everyone's executing effectively. But to go to the training the AI piece is, if you bring in something like ChatGPT, or my favorite tool is by Atomic Elevator, it's called Ella. But when you bring in a tool like that to help with marketing execution, you need to give it as much information as you can. So that tool is creating content that's in your tone of voice to your target market, telling your story, and not just generalizing information online. And so when we're setting up AI for our clients from a marketing execution standpoint, we're feeding a ton of information into AI before we even think about execution. And so things like sales call recordings and ideal client interviews and leadership stories. So why did, the leaders, the business owners get into business? What are their stories? What have they learned from clients over the years? We're feeding in previous content so it can get a feel for tone of voice. And we're feeding in brand guidelines and so much information, because when you can train AI with all of that effectively, it does, as you mentioned earlier, it's a little bit of a pause and do a little bit of heavy lifting, but then you're able to then create content that's on brand in your tone of voice, telling your story, and is not just general content that any of your competitors could create. And that's when AI amplifies your impact versus just telling a messy piece of information that it found online.
Yeah, and for our listeners, we've talked about this in the past. It's context, right? You provide it with as much context as you can. And you start with that low-hanging fruit. Maybe you're just utilizing an LLM. You train it on just your writing style. You give it 100 blog posts or your old research papers you wrote in college, and it'll train itself on your blogs, on your writing style. And let's say you start there, that's a low hanging fruit. Or you start with, Microsoft Copilot, meeting summaries. That's a low hanging fruit to get started. And then you can feed that. You have a client, client conversation, client meeting. You feed that transcript from that into an LLM to better cater your marketing for them. Then what kind of Sarah was speaking about is you can bring in integrations from all your disparate systems, right? So let's say you're a marketing team. We have a marketing team that we worked with in a construction company, and they have an RFP process. request for a proposal. And this is a rock star our marketing team, and they do things really, really well. And so they're using tools like the Adobe Suite. They're using their CRM. They're pulling in data there. They're even pulling in data from their ERP and QuickBooks and stuff like that to get financial data. They're pulling in data from everywhere just to know how can I better cater this based on this. And they're looking at all their previous RFPs to better train their RFPs, and not just the ones that were successful, but the ones that also failed. So you actually have the data from the ones where you didn't win, and so you know not to repeat those steps again. So the more context you have, the better you can do. But again, you don't start by gathering all that data right away. You start, talking across your organization. What is this data strategy? We call it either a data center of excellence or AI center of excellence. Is like you have key stakeholders from all over the organization to come to talk about that. But I love that you brought that up, that you add that context to hone in on those skills.
Yeah, in the one that I shared earlier when I was kind of talking through all those things, that's I think a fairly easy one to get started with. If you're like, this is overwhelming, where do I start? Is just sales call recordings. If you're having actual conversations with prospects on a regular basis, because you can do a couple things with that. Chat GPT or whatever program you're using, it doesn't matter, but it will start to learn how you naturally talk about things and how you address pain points. But it'll also be able to pull out what are the themes that people are sharing on the most consistent basis. And so then you can take the themes and you can start producing marketing content that addresses those pain points or those objections or whatever you're hearing before people even get on a call with you. So it makes your sales calls better. So that's one of the best things. Like the easiest, simplest thing to get started is record your sales calls, get the transcripts, feed them into ChatGPT, and then start creating content that addresses those pain points before you actually get on a call with someone. And then you can use that same, ChatGPT and another custom GPT to then actually prepare for sales calls. By basically, you could say, I'm talking to this prospect. You already know our products and services. How should I prepare for this specific sales call? What should I be thinking about? What questions should I ask? And so you can use ChatGPT or whatever platform of your choice to prepare for sales calls, to analyze sales calls, and then help you craft marketing messages for before they even speak with you and for following up with them afterwards. And so I think the exciting thing with AI is it allows you to tie together departments that maybe were previously siloed when you're thinking marketing, sales, customer service. It was usually a handoff. Now you're able to tie those departments together so they're supporting each other by using processes like that.
Yeah, and we say it all the time. The single best part of the whole AI revolution is it's a technology, a great equalizer because it removes those barriers, especially in large organizations where there's people just work in these silos. They don't even know these other people exist, or they're talked about like in the third person, the name that shouldn't be said kind of thing. It breaks down those barriers, and you understand empathy. Again, I'm a technologist, and so empathy in the technology space is just not something we're all practical and pragmatic and yes or no kind of guys. The gray areas, that's where marketing lives, right? It's understanding those things and streamlining those processes. It takes, again, when you're going across those disparate systems and trying to gather context from them, you need to talk to accounting, you need to talk to sales, you need to talk to all these groups to understand how they're utilizing that data and how you should come together as an organization to store that data. And Rome wasn't built in a day, but you start setting that foundation now, and over time, like you said, get those quick wins over time. Each little additional process you add to it just means you get better and better and better and more streamlined. And then more people within your organization can again go and use those tools that you've trained and learn more about the organization too. Like people are on board faster, like that whole process. Just once your sales process is documented and then you train an internal LLM on it, people just go chat to the LLM. It was like, where are we at in this process kind of thing. So you'll see increases all across the board. And it's hard to say like where the ROI is, but I kind of, now that you talked about generating that content from a sales and marketing perspective, can you talk about like just again from, I know a lot of tech startups listen to this, how it really is you could take that same sort of stuff you're doing from a marketing perspective, like direct marketing to a customer and building content for like your web presence, whether it's white papers or case studies or those sorts of things. How have you seen, companies make their web footprint bigger utilizing these tools?
Yeah, I mean, if you take the time to train it on everything that we talked about, or at least some of it, then you're able to analyze your website. And so there's, some of my favorite things to do within like a ChatGPT is pull deep research reports. And so you're able to pull a deep research report on your top competitors. And basically you give it a prompt in ChatGPT, it goes out and it creates a multi-page research document on your competitors within minutes and then produces that for you. And so I think that's a good way to start understanding what your competitors are doing and saying to then think about okay, what are we going to do and say that's different on our website? Another deep research report I love to pull is a brand analysis. And so you can basically pull a brand analysis on how your company is being seen online. And if you're considered a thought leader, like how are you being portrayed and seen online as well? So you can take both of those deep research reports and then you say, okay, let's analyze our existing website versus our competitors and make recommendations on how we can optimize and improve and stand out from the crowd ultimately.
That's all great advice, and we preach deep research all the time, but I haven't used it for marketing yet, and so I feel like I should pay your retainer or something because you're giving all this great advice, and I'm actually going to go do shortly after we get done with this conversation because we have been going through that process of trying to build our footprint. One reason we started the podcast, obviously, too, and so yeah, it's great advice, folks. If you haven't used the deep research tools on these, definitely do it. I haven't done it from a marketing perspective, but that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to really try that. That's really great. So with that said, I know evangelism is a really big part of your business model and like, helping upskill people as well. Can you just talk about how you like to go about training strategic partners and what that kind of looks like for Duct Tape?
So strategic partners in terms of other agencies or in terms of our clients? What do you mean specifically
Por
there?
qué no los dos? Maybe both. Like, if you like, whatever you'd like to focus on.
Yeah. I mean, for the small businesses, I see a lot of people that are overwhelmed and lost when it comes to AI. And so specifically, I spoke to a group last week of women, all very successful, all run businesses. And my presentation was basically on how to bring in AI strategically. And so before I presented, I asked them all, like, where are you in terms of AI, like dabbling, experienced, confident, confused, kind of just get a feel. And like everyone in that room was just dabbling in AI right now. And it's because they know they need to be doing it, but they don't know how to do it effectively. And so my passion right now specifically is helping small businesses not be as overwhelmed with AI and to bring it in and to get quick wins, but to do it all effectively. And then when I'm talking to our agencies and fractional CMOs that we certify, there's a lot of fear and unknown in the marketing agency space right now. I read an article by Forbes recently talking about all the jobs that are going to be replaced by AI in marketing specifically. And so there's just a lot of uncertainty. And so when I'm talking to that group, I'm talking about more of how we need to shift and evolve to be leaders and to be strategic implementers of AI and not just operating as we always have been. Really, what I try to do from an AI perspective is help people feel less overwhelmed, help them simplify, and help them be smart about what they're actually bringing in.
That's awesome. I'm passionate in the same area. I also do the same sort of things. I was actually just invited to a founders group here in Houston. I'm going to the first meeting within the next week or so, and there's like 15 founders, and most of them aren't technical founders, but they're very, very smart people, and they're somewhat technical. But they kind of want to know again, how can we utilize AI? Where is it approachable? Where does it make sense? Again, we are in the toddler phase of AI, but that doesn't mean there's not awesome things you can do with it now. So again, we're trying to create a cult of AI, right? It's not so much, it's coming whether we like it or not. And so what we hope to do is like have people prepared, have people enabled for that success, and just know that you can do it. And it really isn't as big a hurdle as you think it is. And again, the beauty is you can use these tools to help upskill you. No, I don't think any other time in the past you couldn't just go to YouTube and like, I guess you can now because there's so much content. Like, teach me how to be successful on YouTube, and there's the whole series of that. But when YouTube first came out, there wasn't. But now you can do that. It's like, help me be successful with LLMs or ChatGPT, and you go ask ChatGPT that, and it'll help you. And you just say, what's your job, and those sorts of things. So that's awesome.
Well, and that's like an important mindset shift too that I just want to touch on. Like a lot of people, when they first bring in AI, they think of it as just like, let's execute or let's be more productive. And that stuff's important. But where it really changes, I think, for people in a lot of cases is where they shift from let's just be more productive to let's use AI to help me think more strategically and bigger picture. And so think about a ChatGPT or whatever your tool of choice is as a thought partner. And so, give it context of your business and talk about what you're trying to accomplish and have ChatGPT push you further than you are currently doing on your own. And that's where I really see AI click for a lot of people when it comes from like a strategic perspective, is not just think of it as like a doer or an executor or a low level team member. Think of it as someone that can be or something that can be a thought leader that can actually push you and help you think differently than just keep doing things you've always done.
Yeah, that's such a fantastic take, and I think again, it is a mindset change that folks, because a lot like we talk about all the time. See people like, "Oh, AI is cheating." Like, no, you still have to have critical thinking skills and soft skills to make your way through those problems. And I think for a lot of folks, they also have imposter syndrome, right? And so, like, hey, you're giving a presentation, or hey, you just have it validate you and just validate your ideas and validate like your findings and discovery. I found that to be really helpful for me because, again, it is one of those things. I hate being wrong more than anything in this world, and there are times when I'm wrong, but I do everything in my power not to be wrong. And it's great to have a tool I could go to. It's like, I'm not lying to people if I say this, right? Especially trying to be a thought leader and trying to be out there and teach people. And so, yeah, that's a great perspective. And that's one of the areas you're not going to see immediate ROI. That's just a change in, and again, I mention ROI because business leaders like, oh, we're going to implement AI. We need to see ROI within the first quarter. That's not really how this works. You can,
Yeah.
I guess, with the marketing perspective and other niche tool sets, but like changing the mindset within your organization, having those open lines of communication, those are foundational changes within the organization. I think if you set those foundations, you're going to have happier people for one, because you're more communicative and everybody feels like they're part of a team rather than working in their own silos and like with chickens with their heads cut off kind of things.
Yeah, and I think that's like on the point of ROI. Like, I think you can do some quick wins and quick things with automation when it comes to just like analyzing people's processes and help them automate it. Like, you can get them quick wins, but I do think a lot of the value of AI is also the strategic thinking, thought partner piece. And you're not going to get, maybe you'll uncover some quick wins through that, but a lot of that's like bigger picture, longer term growth benefit in my eyes. And so, with marketing, we're always analyzing how can you get some quick wins, but also long term payoff and growth. And so I think if you can think about that with AI as well. How can you get some quick wins, but also how can you get long-term strategic growth? That's where you'll really see the value.
Yeah, that's all great advice. And I know you mentioned those kinds of quick wins in theirs, but where would where like what's a catch-all for like 70% of the time? I'd say this is where I think most businesses should start, or where can they get that quick win from a marketing perspective specifically? What's the key area that you think is the most adaptable or approachable? I'm sorry.
Production, I would say, is the easiest one right off the bat. But again, you have to put the proper training and guidelines in place first to then be able to produce content. But a lot of times I hear people getting started, like when I ask, like, oh, what are you doing for AI? And they're like, oh, it helps me write emails back to people. So I think that's kind of a quick way to just like start kind of experiencing it. And then maybe you evolve to like social posts and blog posts and from there. So I think content's the easiest way to start dabbling. My encouragement there is don't just create generic content, put the work in on the front end.
Yeah, and so what Sarah's kind of saying there is you build those processes, you set that foundation by building the processes, the systems, and the data readiness. And I would say use these tools to help you build those three things to set that
Yeah.
foundation as well. Like, what's my data readiness plan for? You feed it in there, like, this is my overall goal for marketing over the next 6 months.
Yeah.
Give me some approachable ways to do that, what that roadmap would kind of look like. And again, until you add the context to specific to you and your team, like, oh, I have a team of 4 people and we have 2 extra hours a week, and we have a new product coming out in 2 months. Like, what can we do to leading up to that? That's where you're going to get that really streamlined process to help you roll out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think something we would probably agree on is avoid the shiny tool syndrome. Like,
Mm.
oh, I have ADHD, so I'm always like squirrel, like the next best thing. And or get 90% through to something, see something through to the end, and at least you'll
Yeah.
get, if it fails, at least at least you've learned something from that failure, what not to do it again, kind of thing. And just focus. I think the tool doesn't matter. The tools are going to change. The best models are going to change week by week. We can't even keep up with it. So I have kind of the new segment at the start. Focus on that, the process of systems and data readiness and communication within your team.
Yeah, and also what are you trying to accomplish? And so let's say you're trying to, increase revenue by X amount in the next 3 months, and that is going to be by launching paid campaigns. And so if that's a priority that you've identified, then you can say, what AI tools, by using deep research report, even if you wanted to, what AI tools are going to help us build and optimize these ad campaigns as effectively as possible from the beginning. So that helps avoid shiny object syndrome as well, because you're saying, okay, this is what I'm going to accomplish. How are we going to get there? Versus, oh, I checked my inbox and there's 5 more promotions in there about different AI tools that came out this week. I need all of them. So it always comes back to like, what are you trying to accomplish, and then what tools can you bring in? And that's how you can help avoid shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, and in parallels with what we've preached in the past about how we solve problems, what's your problem you're trying to solve, and then start with the people closest to the problem. I wouldn't say like what do what are you trying to accomplish? That's a very different descriptor from the executive vice president level to like the boots on the ground level. And so maybe you bring several different key stakeholders or people who would be open to utilizing these technologies in their organization to have that conversation and find that middle ground where like everybody's happy, right? Where everybody's thinks you're moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna have a hot take segment in just a second, but I want to get a couple of housekeeping things out of the way. Thank you again, Sarah, for joining us. I think this is a really valuable for most mid-market and small businesses. Again, marketing is one of the areas where I think, again, founders and solopreneurs and stuff, they're wearing multiple hats and it's like, well, I guess I'm a marketer now. Like, yep, I guess you are. And so you can use these tools to punch above your weight class, as we like to say. I would say, what, how would you convince how would you sell the need for like a CMO to a smaller business who doesn't necessarily have a dedicated marketing team, and like what could they see from the benefits of that? Because we've had this conversation internally within our organization. It's like, do we actually need to get like a fractional CMO, or are we just going to wing it and try to figure things out on our own? I can tell you now that it hasn't been the smoothest of sailing just trying to wing it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity in bringing in fractional CMOs into a business because, especially with small business budget, it's very hard to afford a full CMO full time with salaries, just because that eats up most of marketing budgets when you're talking about small businesses. And so the fractional CMO allows you to bring in a strategic advisor that can oversee all of marketing. And to your point right there, so many CEOs or founders get put into the CMO seat because they don't have a solution in place. And then they're taken away from everything else that's on their plate, and they're learning marketing as they go. And so that's where I see a lot of people spin their wheels, get burnt out, get really busy, get frustrated with marketing, is because oftentimes you didn't get into business to be a CMO. You got into business because you saw an opportunity or you were passionate about something. And so that's where the fractional CMO can come in and act as your partner, where they can run marketing alongside you so you can focus on running the business as the CEO. And so it allows you to stay in your zone of genius and bring in someone that can stay in theirs ultimately.
And how many hours would you say for a small business under 25 employees? How many hours do you think would reasonably take for a fractional CMO, like monthly hours? How approachable is it for most small businesses?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the CMO, and so the fractional CMO. And so there definitely are fractional CMOs out there that will say, you get a day of my time or whatever it might be, depending on your engagement. But for us, we're a little bit different where we're never promising hours to our clients. We're promising value. So essentially, this is the role we're going to play. These are the results we're working towards. These are the deliverables we're going to oversee. These are the meetings you're going to get. This is the budget we're going to own. These are the metrics we're going to own. And so what we're selling is not X amount of hours, but it's basically, this is what we're going to do from a marketing perspective. This is how we're going to run the marketing department. This is how we're going to collaborate with you. And so with us, we're typically more of we come in and create the marketing strategy, and then we go into a long-term retainer that's just a set monthly fee versus number of hours.
Yeah, and I guess where folks can find solace is that is marketing is one of the areas that has like metrics inherently built in, right? It's easy to
Yeah.
kind of prove exactly what you're accomplishing, where a lot of the other business sides is very nuanced. And so it is one of those areas. I think you not necessarily may not see ROI, but you can see the value immediately. I think is one of the key points there.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks, Sarah, for being in this conversation today. All the information that we've shared today, all the links we've talked about, all the products and sources that Sarah's mentioned or I've mentioned will be in that newsletter. So just linktree.com/digitalmeld. It'll come out a couple of days after the podcast comes out. Again, we'll have way more information too. We'll have links to Sarah and Duct Marketing as well. Follow Sarah on LinkedIn if you haven't already, and Duct Marketing too, because she shares stuff nearly daily that is very valuable. I've been following her for a couple weeks and already, again, I have been trying to wear that CMO hat as well as CEO, and I need to learn to delegate. I think like most entrepreneurs, it's your baby and you don't want to lose things, but I think I need to learn to delegate. So again, thanks, Sarah,
Read
for
the book
joining us.
Buy Back Your Time. I would say read. It's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. If you're thinking about delegation, it's an incredible book to get past that hurdle.
Yeah, and I should, because I've read like Herb Keller's Nuts, the founder of Southwest Airlines, and Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. All these books that tell you what you're supposed to do. But I will definitely pick that one up, and we'll link that in the show notes as well for other folks that want to do. And again, if you don't want to buy it, check out the Libby app. You can probably get the audiobook for free from your local library. So you support your local libraries, folks. So I think we're going to finish off with a quick hot takes segment. I'm just going to ask you a couple questions and just whatever's on your mind or whatever you think is relevant, and then we'll open up the floor for you for a couple minutes. So what is the AI tool that you think is overhyped?
The AI tool that's overhyped. Honestly, this is going to sound kind of funny because I love ChatGPT, but I would say ChatGPT without or any LLM without the proper strategy built in. We've talked about that already, but I think people are just turning to these tools as like, I can just do all of my marketing in it and it's amazing and it's going to fix all my problems. And then they just create all this confusion. So I think those tools are incredible, but they're overhyped if not set up correctly.
I would wholly agree with that because, again, what I've tried to tell folks, they're generative models. So they're going to generate content for you. They're never going to say, I don't know. They're never going to say, oh, you shouldn't do that. They're going to give you some kind of response, and they're never really going to tell you anything bad. So just know that until you add that context, until you train it for what's important to you and your business, that's a really great take. I agree. Basically, any solution without context, I think, is going to be
Yep.
very, very limited. And so what marketing trend do you wish more clients embraced?
One marketing trend. I'm going to also sound like a broken record on this, but taking a step back and actually creating messaging and strategy before diving in all these tools is also a trend. Like I've just seen it so many times over the years where people just make noise and dive into tactics and spend so much money and waste so much money and get so frustrated. And so there's a solution to it. And it's all about just taking a step back and mapping out your marketing strategy and nailing the messaging. Because what we were talking about earlier, very earlier on in the show, is like this personalization opportunity. If you don't actually take a step back to understand your target market and what message resonates with them specifically, personalization is a massive challenge. And so there's opportunity right now as long as you take a step back and think about things strategically.
No, I think that's great too, because again, we tell folks all the time, we need to set the foundation before we start building, and you're echoing pretty much those same sentiments, and so I agree with that as well. And what is a mindset shift marketers need to make in 2025? I think you probably alluded to this, but I'll let you answer that as well.
Yeah, I did. I think the biggest opportunity is to shift from doing all of the marketing to being more strategic about advisors and to lead the marketing. And so if you're an executor today in marketing in a business or as an agency, really think about how can I orchestrate marketing to make more of an impact versus being in the weeds.
Awesome. And so you gave us one great book recommendation already, but do you have one for leaders thinking about AI and marketing specifically?
Yeah, AI Driven Leader is a really great book by Jeff Woods. So it was one of the books I had already been using ChatGPT as like more of a thought partner. And that's a lot of what his book is about is you're the thought leader, use ChatGPT as your thought partner to continue to elevate your thinking. And so he goes into specifics and details on how to do that exact thing.
Awesome. Yeah, we've heard that one before, and I think that's one that everybody should put in their rotation for sure, and actually just have it on your desk to reference back to it, recurringly. So finally, your boldest prediction regarding the future of marketing in the AI era.
Someone actually recently asked me on a podcast, where do you think marketing will be in 10 years from now? And I'm like, honestly, I have no clue in 10
Yeah.
years from now. But my prediction is marketing org charts are going to drastically change in the business space. And so before, I used to tell businesses that you need like an SEO specialist and a content specialist and a social specialist and all of the areas depending on what you're focusing on. I think the shift is going to be still need in terms of the org chart, you still need a marketing leader, and then you need somewhat marketing generalists that can oversee different AI solutions, getting deep in each of the areas and channels of marketing. And so I think marketing departments are going to stay a lot more lean and be, a leader, 1, 2, 3 people executing. And this is specifically small business space because that's my space. But then they'll have AI systems below them doing a lot of the execution. And so it's going to drastically change the marketing org chart, I would say, in the next year.
Yeah, So I mean, that was my last question, but you spurred on another question. What would your advice be to people in the marketing space to make themselves invaluable and to survive those changes?
Learn AI.
Yeah.
Get good at AI is a big piece of it. Continue to learn strategy, continue to learn communication, empathy, all the things that we kind of talked about. It's like you need to up level and work on the human tasks and also the management tasks. I also think that it's going to be really interesting because right now, people that are in marketing, like they already know how to write a blog content from scratch. They already know how to do execution from scratch. People entering the marketing field aren't going to have to necessarily do things from scratch. So I think it's going to be very interesting because we talked about like training AI with your tone of voice and your content and your writing style. People growing up with AI now, they won't ever have to really do things from scratch. So I think it will be very interesting. My advice is just focus on learning AI and being strategic leaders and focus on management skills because I think that's where you're going to continue to stay relevant right now.
Yeah, that's something we preach regularly is basically just there's human plus AI, and I think human plus AI in most technical jobs or jobs that require keyboard and mouse kind of thing are going to be the ones that embrace AI are the ones who can be able to differentiate themselves and use these tools that, hey, I'm a marketer, I want to make myself indispensable over the next year. Go ask ChatGPT, and it'll give you a pretty decent roadmap, I think, to get you there. Again, but you need to think outside the box and be personable and just, again, don't be afraid to pivot and upskill on those things and build things. Now, everybody's vibe coding now. I'm sure you probably have an idea. Again, it could blow up in your face, but who knows? At least you've tried something. I would just encourage everyone to step outside their comfort zone and try all of those things because it is none of us know. We're all making our best measured guess of what's going to happen over the next several years. But that's one reason I think Sarah's on this podcast and doing the things she's doing with education, and we're trying to do the same things too, is because we're hopefully we'll learn things and glean information as best as we can from everyone we can. So
yeah,
thanks for joining us for this conversation. And Sarah, thanks again for joining us. I'm just going to leave the floor open to you for the next 1 to 2 minutes and just let us know where people can find you and or anything you want to say.
Yeah, I would just end what you were saying there is like we're all learning this together. No one's like a true expert because it's evolving so fast. And so even if you feel behind, you're not that far behind. And I would encourage you to be as curious as possible. Like that's something that you need to focus on is being curious and willing to learn and have that growth mindset. So I just want to end with that. My name is Sara Nay. I'm on LinkedIn. Sounds like you'll add that link in the show notes. And then also our company is Duct Tape Marketing. So it's just ducttapemarketing.com. We serve small business clients and we also serve fractional CMOs and agencies based on everything that we talked about in this show. So I'd love to either connect with you on LinkedIn or have you come visit our website and grab some of our free content.
Yeah, I can't believe it's taken me so long to mention, but I just love the name Duct Tape Marketing. Like duct tape is like one of the best tools ever. So that's awesome. Best inventions ever. So again, thanks Sarah for joining us. Thank you listeners for partaking in this conversation. Please look out for the show notes and the newsletter that comes out on LinkedIn. We'll have all this information plus a summary of the podcast, plus links to Sarah and Duct Tape and the books, the great books she's recommended and other resources that we've talked about. So just please share this around, like and subscribe, and we hope to see you in the future episodes. We have another interview next week from someone else from Mozilla. We've had a couple of folks from Mozilla so far. The AIs, it's great that we're getting these great conversations because, as Sarah just alluded to, we don't really know what's going to happen. We're all just kind of guessing. And I love that unknown. Eric brought it up. Eric Archer, my guest last week, brought it up. You also have to look at the fact that we're like the first generation we're at the start of a new technology. So we're going to have that additional context that people born in 5 years or 10 years or coming up with that AI now, they're not going to know how the foundational levels were. They're just going to wake up one day and it all does it for them. And so I think that kind of gives us a differentiator. Like that kind of gives us a little edge. I hadn't thought about that before. And so just know that, again, we're all learning as we're going, but we're in the best possible time, I think, for us, for sure.
I agree.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sarah, for joining us. And thanks again for everyone listening. And we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
We want to hear about your AI and automation journey, and we'd love for you to get involved with Start Small, Think Big. If you'd like to participate or offer feedback, please reach out to us anytime via email at contact@digitalmeld.io or use the contact form on our website, digitalmeld.io/contact. Also, please help spread the word by liking, subscribing, and sharing our podcasts on your podcast platform of choice. Thanks.